At 12:30 in the afternoon, a routine transfer began. 90 seconds later, $1.5 billion had vanished into the hands of a hostile government. 3 signatures, that's all it took. 3 trusted executives, sitting at their screens, looking at a transaction they had approved 100 times before. A routine transfer. Move some ether from a cold wallet into a warm one. Nothing unusual, nothing that should have raised an alarm. They read the address on the screen, it matched. They read the amount, it matched. Everything matched, because someone had made sure it would. They clicked approve. 90 seconds later, roughly 400,000 ether, worth an estimated $1.5 billion, was gone. Not hacked out of a vault. Not siphoned through some hidden backdoor in the code. It walked out the front door, past 3 sets of trained eyes, because the screen itself had been turned into a weapon. This is the story of how a state that most of the world tries to ignore, a country with almost no internet, almost no economy, and almost no way to buy what it needs on the open market, became, by some estimates, the single most successful bank robber on Earth. And it's the story of how they did it without ever touching a vault, a firewall, or a password. To understand what happened to Bybit, you first need to understand who was waiting on the other end of that transaction. For over a decade, a hacking collective tracked by Western intelligence agencies under several names, Lazarus Group, APT38, and more recently Trader, has operated as something closer to a state ministry than a criminal gang. Analysts widely link the group to North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau, the country's primary foreign intelligence service. Unlike most cybercriminal organizations which chase money because money is the point, this group appears to answer to a government that has one specific, urgent need: hard currency that doesn't have to pass through a banking system controlled by its enemies. North Korea has been under some of the harshest international sanctions on the planet for years, largely tied to its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Traditional avenues for raising money, trade, tourism, foreign investment, are mostly closed. But cryptocurrency offered something almost too convenient: a global, fast-moving financial system that, in its early years, had far fewer checkpoints than a wire transfer through a Western bank. By the mid-2020s, blockchain analytics firms estimate North Korean-linked hackers had already stolen billions of dollars in digital assets, a figure that had been climbing every single year. In 2023 alone, researchers tracked roughly $660 million stolen across around 20 separate incidents. The following year, that number reportedly more than doubled, past $1.3 billion. Analysts believe a meaningful share of the country's weapons development has been funded, at least in part, by money that started as somebody else's retirement account, somebody else's savings, somebody else's crypto exchange balance. Think about what that actually means for a moment. This isn't a handful of bored teenagers in a basement chasing a payday. This is understood by Western intelligence agencies to function as a state program, recruiters identifying talented students inside North Korea, training them for years in programming and network intrusion, then deploying them, sometimes disguised as remote IT contractors for Western companies, sometimes operating from hacking cells based out of China or Russia, all reporting proceeds back to a government that treats cybercrime the way other nations treat an export industry. Every one of those earlier hacks, the exchanges breached, the bridges drained, the individual wallets emptied, was practice. Every one was a rehearsal for something bigger. That practice showed. The group's fingerprints already stretched back over a decade, tied by investigators to incidents ranging from the 2014 breach of Sony Pictures Entertainment to the WannaCry ransomware outbreak that crippled hospitals and businesses across the globe in 2017. To a growing list of crypto exchange hacks that piled up year after year with almost nobody outside the industry paying close attention. Each operation sharpened the same skill set: patience, reconnaissance, and an almost surgical understanding of exactly where trust breaks down inside a financial system. That something bigger arrived on February 21, 2025, aimed at a company most people outside the crypto world had never heard of. Bybit was, by trading volume, one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges on the planet, a Dubai-based platform with tens of millions of registered users, trusting the company to safeguard billions of dollars in digital assets on their behalf. To those users, Bybit wasn't a target. It was infrastructure. It was where their savings lived, where their trading history sat, where a piece of their financial life had quietly relocated without most of them ever thinking twice about what stood between their balance and the outside world. Like most serious exchanges, Bybit didn't keep the bulk of its customer funds sitting in an internet-connected, hot wallet, vulnerable to a direct online attack. Instead, the majority sat in cold storage, offline, air-gapped, protected by multiple layers of cryptographic signatures that were supposed to make theft, in practical terms, almost impossible. It's the same logic a bank uses when it keeps most of its cash in a vault rather than a teller's drawer. The theory was sound. The execution had a hole in it that nobody had thought to check. Almost, because somewhere in the chain of trust that protected those billions, there was a single point that nobody had fully accounted for. And Lazarus Group had already found it. Months earlier, quietly, patiently, waiting for the right moment to pull the thread. Bybit didn't build its own wallet infrastructure from scratch. Very few exchanges do. Instead, like much of the crypto industry, it relied on a widely trusted piece of third-party software, a multi-signature wallet platform called Safe, formerly known as Gnosis Safe. Multi-signature, or multi-sig, wallets are supposed to be one of the strongest defenses in crypto. Instead of one person holding the keys to a fortune, several trusted signers each have to independently approve a transaction before it goes through. In theory, an attacker would need to compromise multiple people at multiple points, all at once. It's the digital equivalent of requiring 3 different keys, held by 3 different guards, to open the same vault door. But here's the question almost nobody was asking in early 2025. What if you don't attack the guards at all? What if you attack what the guards are looking at? Forensic investigators, brought in after the fact by firms including Signia and Vericanes, traced the origin of the breach not to Bybit itself, but upstream, to the infrastructure of Safe's own development team. At some point before the attack, Lazarus Group operatives are believed to have compromised a developer's machine connected to Safe systems, gaining access to the cloud storage, an Amazon Web Services S3 bucket, used to host the JavaScript code that powered Safe's user interface. This is the part worth sitting with for a moment. They didn't break the wallet. They didn't crack any encryption. They altered the window through which the wallet was viewed. Think about what that means for the entire concept of multi-sig security. The whole promise of requiring multiple signers is that no single point of failure can bring the system down. But that promise rests on an assumption nobody wrote into the security model explicitly, that every signer is looking at accurate information. Compromise the information layer, and it doesn't matter how many trusted humans are standing guard. You've turned 3 independent locks into 3 copies of the same broken lock. And this is precisely why the compromise went unnoticed for as long as it did. An attack on Bybit's own servers would have shown up in Bybit's own logs, on Bybit's own security dashboards, monitored by Bybit's own team. But this attack never touched Bybit's infrastructure at all, not directly. It lived 1 layer upstream, inside a vendor's code, in a place none of Bybit's internal defenses were built to watch. Somewhere in that compromised code, the attackers inserted a small, carefully engineered piece of malicious JavaScript, one designed to lie in wait, doing absolutely nothing for most of the people who encountered it. It had a target. The altered code was built to recognize when it was being loaded specifically for Bybit's wallet addresses. For virtually every other user of Safe software, the interface functioned exactly as intended, which is precisely why the tampering went undetected for so long. There was no broad breach to trip an alarm. There was a trap, set for 1 victim, hidden inside a tool used by thousands. When Bybit signers logged in to authorize what they believed was a standard transfer from cold storage to a hot wallet, the compromised interface showed them exactly what they expected to see: the right destination address, the right amount, every visual detail confirming a routine, previously authorized transaction. But underneath that convincing display, the actual transaction data being sent to the blockchain for signing had been silently swapped. The real destination wasn't Bybit's own wallet. It was an address controlled by Lazarus Group. 3 separate signers looked at that screen. 3 separate signers saw what appeared to be a transaction they trusted. And 3 separate signers approved it, not because they were careless, but because the entire point of the attack was to make carelessness irrelevant. You cannot catch a lie you were never shown. This is where the human psychology of the operation becomes as important as the code. The strength of a multi-sig wallet depends entirely on the assumption that what each signer sees on their screen reflects reality. Security professionals sometimes call this kind of failure a blind signing risk, approving something you cannot actually verify because the interface designed to help you verify it has itself become compromised. It's a chillingly simple exploit of trust. Not tricking a person into making a mistake, but tricking the tool the person relies on to prevent mistakes in the first place. Within roughly 90 seconds of that approval, more than 400,000 Ether and staked Ether tokens, worth an estimated $1.5 billion at the time, left Bybit's cold wallet for good. At approximately 12:30 p.m. Universal Time Coordinated, Bybit's security team detected unauthorized activity inside one of its Ethereum cold wallets during what should have been a routine transfer. Within hours, the exchange's leadership made a decision that would define how the entire crypto industry watched this unfold. Instead of quietly trying to contain the damage, they went public almost immediately. Bybit's CEO addressed users directly, confirming the exchange had suffered what appeared to be the largest crypto theft in history, and moved quickly to reassure the market that the company remained solvent, that customer funds were not at risk, backed by other reserves and, if necessary, emergency lending. But reassurance and reality are two different things when 400,000 Ether is moving across the blockchain in real time, visible to anyone watching, and everyone was watching. Within a day, independent blockchain investigators, most notably a researcher known online as ZachXBT, had begun publishing detailed on-chain analysis connecting wallet addresses and transaction patterns from the Bybit theft to infrastructure long associated with North Korean cyber operations. Blockchain intelligence firm Arkham Intelligence backed the findings. Within roughly 48 hours, the digital fingerprints pointed overwhelmingly in one direction. Meanwhile, the money was already disappearing.